I'm 68 years old, and I can tell you the exact sound a house makes when it's finally yours. It isn't the front door clicking shut. It isn't the furnace kicking on in November. It's smaller than that. It's the absence of footsteps that don't belong to you. It's the silence after you pay the last mortgage payment and you sit at your kitchen table with a cup of coffee you made too strong because no one will complain, and you realize slowly, like a bruise spreading, that you spent 3 decades buying peace in monthly installments. My wife, Ellen, used to laugh at me for keeping envelopes. "You're a human filing cabinet," she'd say, waving a fork at me like it was a judge's gavel. No one keeps paper anymore. I kept it anyway. Old habit. Depression-era parents. A brain that liked proof. On the top shelf in the hallway closet, behind the winter scarves that still smelled faintly like her perfume, I had folders labeled in black marker. Mortgage, property tax, insurance, repairs, medical, auto. The boring stuff that keeps you alive. Ellen died 3 years ago on a Tuesday morning in late April. The kind of day that looks too bright to match what it takes from you. She went in her sleep. No drama. No final speech. Just a small final surrender that left me with a king-size bed that suddenly looked foolish and a refrigerator that stayed full because I didn't know how to shop for one. I learned that soup tastes different when it's always for one. I learned to buy half loaves of bread and still throw the ends away. I learned the microwaves reheat button like it was a secret handshake. I learned to talk to the radio and not feel embarrassed about it. And I learned that loneliness doesn't crash into you. It seeps. That's the part people don't tell you. They tell you, stay busy. They tell you, join a group. They tell you, time heals. Time doesn't heal. Time just continues. And you have to decide what to do with all that continuation. My daughter, Rachel, decided for me. It began with a phone call on a Thursday evening, 6:47 p.m. Because I remember looking at the stove clock while the pasta water boiled and thinking it needed to be set back an hour. "Dad," she said, and the word came out like she was already tired of saying it. "I need a place to land for a little while." A little while. Those are the 2 most expensive words in family. Rachel was 38, my only child, the one Ellen used to call bright in the way you call a flame bright, right before it catches your curtains. She had a degree she didn't use, a job she hated but kept, and a marriage that always looked fine from the outside. Fine, it turned out, had a late fee. "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Define okay," she said. "I'm leaving Brian. It's complicated." I heard the pause, the inhale, the careful way she placed her breath, like a chess piece. "And I don't have cash right now," she added quickly. "Everything's tied up." Tied up? Another expensive phrase. I should tell you something honest. I wanted to say yes before she even finished the sentence. Not because I'm weak. Not because I didn't see the pattern. Because when your house has been quiet for 3 years, the idea of another human voice in it feels like turning the lights on. "Come," I said. "Of course. You're my daughter." I waited for the gratitude, the softening. It didn't come. "Thanks," she said, already moving to the next point. "I'll be there Saturday. I have stuff. A lot of stuff." When she arrived, it looked less like a visit and more like an invasion with better luggage. A rented cargo van. 2 of her friends carrying boxes like they were moving evidence. Rachel in black leggings and a gray hoodie. Phone glued to her ear. Barking instructions with the confidence of someone who had never paid for the house she was entering. "Put the mirror in the front room." "No, not there." "Dad, what do you want her plants?" "We're going to need space." "Your plants." It was a sentence that should have made me smile. Instead, it made my stomach tighten like I'd swallowed a rubber band. I stood in the doorway like a guest in my own home, holding a set of spare keys I'd made that morning at the hardware store. The clerk had asked, "Who are these for?" in the casual way strangers sometimes do when they don't know they're poking a bruise. "My daughter," I'd said, and the keys had felt heavier in my palm after that. Rachel took them without looking at me. "Great," she said, and slid them into her pocket like she'd always owned them. That first night, she sat at my kitchen table, the same table Ellen and I had eaten at for 26 years, and she opened her laptop like she was about to run my life through a spreadsheet. "We'll do some restructuring," she said. "Restructuring," I repeated, because I didn't know what else to do. "Yeah, budget, bills. You shouldn't be handling all of it alone." Her tone was almost sweet, concerned, daughterly. And I fell for it because I wanted to. I watched her make a list. Internet, utilities, insurance, property tax, groceries. I watched her click through banking apps and ask for account numbers, as if she were organizing a pantry. What's the password to your email? She asked casually. Why would you need that? I said, try and sound like a man who still had a spine. To help. Dad, your statements go there. Your health portal. Everything's online. You don't want to miss important notices. Important notices. That phrase should have lit a warning sign the size of Texas. But I was a man who had been missing Ellen for 3 years. I'd been missing someone asking me questions. Someone touching my shoulder in the kitchen. Someone being in the house. So I gave Rachel the password. I gave her the keys. I gave her my quiet. The first month, Rachel was helpful. She cooked twice, chicken stir-fry with too much soy sauce, and a casserole that tasted like it came from a blog written by someone who didn't believe in salt. She vacuumed the living room and moved my recliner 3 inches to the left because she said it opened the space. She set up auto-pay for the electric bill. She installed a smart thermostat and called it an upgrade, even though the old one worked fine and I'd known how to use it without needing an app. She asked me to sign a few things, just for paperwork. I'm not signing anything without reading it, I said, trying to reclaim a small piece of myself. Rachel gave me a patient smile that looked good on her face and bad in my gut. Of course, she said. Read. It's just consent for the utility company to talk to me if there's an issue, so I can handle it. It was 3 pages of dense language, and my eyes weren't what they used to be. I read enough to see the words authorized user and account access, and I signed because I was tired and because I told myself a daughter handling a bill wasn't a tragedy. Then I noticed the mail changing, not the amount. Mail always comes like rain, whether you want it or not, but the direction, the way it disappeared. I used to collect it every day at 2:30 p.m. like clockwork. Ellen had teased me about it too. You and your mail, she'd say. If the world ends at 2:29, you'll still go out there. Rachel started collecting it first. I'd come down the hallway and see her at the entryway table, flipping through envelopes, her phone beside her like a guard dog. When she noticed me watching, she'd slide the stack into a drawer and smile. Mostly junk, she'd say. I'll shred it. It wasn't junk. Not all of it. The first time I realized that it was over something stupid, a coupon booklet from the grocery store. It had a specific brand of coffee I liked, nothing fancy, just the one Ellen used to buy, because she liked the smell when I opened the bag. I asked Rachel if she'd seen it. She blinked at me, slow. No, she said. Why do you care? Just buy whatever. It wasn't about the coffee. It was about the assumption behind her voice. Your preferences are an inconvenience now. Then came the bank. I noticed it in late June when I went to write a check for the lawn service. I still paid them the old way, check in an envelope, because I liked having a paper trail. I liked writing the date. I liked the simple physics of ink meeting paper and meaning something. My checkbook was in the drawer where Ellen and I had always kept it. It was gone. I found it later in Rachel's room, on her desk beside a stack of documents and a half-empty iced coffee. My name was on the top of the bank statements, like a label on a jar. What's that? I asked from the doorway. Rachel didn't look up. Her fingers kept typing. Your accounts, she said. I'm reorganizing. I didn't ask you to reorganize my accounts. She sighed like I was a child refusing vegetables. Dad, you're not going to like this, but you have too many separate accounts. You're paying fees. It's inefficient. I like separate accounts. Because you're old school, she said, not kindly. But this is 2025. Everything's streamlined now. I stared at the statements. I saw line items that made my jaw tighten. Transfers I didn't recognize. Small ones at first. $200. $450. $1,250. What are those? I asked. Rachel finally looked up, and for a second, I saw something hard behind her eyes. Not guilt. Calculation. Oh, that, she said quickly. That's me reimbursing myself. For groceries. For the internet upgrade. For the thermostat. Dad, I've been paying for a lot. Out of my account, I said. She laughed, a short, sharp noise. Yeah, because it's your house. I'm not asking you to starve. I never asked you to pay for anything, I said, and my voice surprised me, low and steadier than I felt. Rachel's smile flickered. You asked me to help, she said. Helping costs money. Helping cost money. There it was, the new family motto. I went back to the hallway closet that night and pulled down my mortgage folder, just to remind myself what real costs looked like. The closing statement from 1999 was still there. Purchase price $212,000. Down payment $42,000. Interest rate 7.25%, because the world was cruel then. I'd refinanced twice. Paid extra when I could. The final payoff letter from the bank was dated September 14, 2019. I had cried that day, not because I loved the bank, but because I'd won something. I'd beaten time. I held that payoff letter in my hands now and realized something that made my stomach go cold. Rachel hadn't grown up watching me pay for the house. She'd grown up watching the house exist. To her, it wasn't something I built. It was something that sat there, like a chair, like furniture, like inheritance. And furniture in Rachel's mind could be rearranged. The transfers didn't stop. They got bigger. By July, I saw a Zelle transfer for $3,800 labeled moving expenses. Rachel hadn't moved. She'd arrived with a van and friends like a traveling circus. I confronted her at breakfast, if you can call it breakfast, when it's 11:00 a.m. and the eggs are cold, because she was on her phone. Rachel, I said, tapping the statement with my finger. What is this? She didn't even look at it. Dad, I told you, I'm covering costs. $3,800 is not costs. It's legal fees, she said quickly, for the divorce. My account is not your legal fund. Her eyes snapped up then, and the sweetness was gone. Are you seriously doing this? She said. After everything I'm dealing with? What you're dealing with does not give you permission to take from me. I'm not taking, she said, voice rising. I'm borrowing. I'll pay back. When I can. My kitchen felt smaller. The air felt thick with the smell of eggs and old grief. I thought of Ellen, how she would have handled this. She would have been gentle, but firm. She had a way of saying no that sounded like kindness. I had never mastered that tone. I said the only thing I could. I want access to my account again, I said. All of them. Today. Rachel smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Fine, she said. If you want to handle everything alone, go ahead. She pushed back her chair hard enough to scrape the floor and walked out, taking her phone and my peace with her. That night, I found my email password had been changed. I tried to log in. Wrong password. I tried again. Wrong. I clicked forgot password. The recovery email was not mine. It was Rachel's. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. A cold realization settled in, simple and ugly. I hadn't invited my daughter to live with me. I had handed her the keys to my identity. The rent demand happened on a Wednesday, exactly 1 week after the password change. It was a normal day until it wasn't. I'd gone to the pharmacy at 9:15 a.m. pick up my blood pressure meds. Came back with a paper bag and a receipt long enough to qualify as a novel. The cashier had asked if I wanted to donate $1 to something, and I'd said yes because I'm that kind of fool. When I got home, a white SUV was parked in my driveway, not Rachel's. She drove a black sedan with peeling tint and a dent in the passenger door she claimed was from a parking lot psycho. This SUV was glossy, new, with dealership plates. I walked inside and heard voices in my living room. Rachel's voice sharp and bright. Another voice, male, low and confident. Brian, I realized from the tone, like a man used to being listened to even when he was wrong. I stood in the hallway, still holding the pharmacy bag, and watched from the shadow like a man watching his own burglary. Rachel sat on my couch, legs crossed, phone on the coffee table. Brian sat beside her like he belonged there, leaning back, smiling as if he'd already won. Rachel looked up and saw me. Dad, she said too loudly. Perfect timing. Brian gave me a little wave. Hey, sir, he said. Good to see you. I didn't answer. I kept walking, slow. What is he doing here? I asked. Rachel's smile was thin. We're discussing logistics, she said. Brian laughed. No drama. Just grown-up stuff. Grown-up stuff. In my house. On my couch. Like I was a child. Rachel patted the cushion beside her like she was inviting me into a meeting. Sit, she said. We need to talk. I'm standing, I said. Rachel's eyes narrowed. Okay, she said, and her voice turned formal, like she'd practiced. Dad, You have to understand that I can't keep floating you. I blinked. Floating me? I repeated. Brian cleared his throat, as if he were about to deliver a presentation. Your situation, he said. It's not sustainable. My situation, I said slowly, tasting the words. In the house I own. Rachel leaned forward, elbows on knees. Her face had that expression people get when they're about to do something cruel and want to call it necessary. You're retired, she said. Your income is fixed. Prices are insane. You're not managing well. I'm managing fine. You're not, she snapped. You don't even know where your money goes. Because you moved it, I thought. But I didn't say that. Not yet. Rachel continued, voice rising with every sentence. Dad, I'm here. I'm handling things. I'm paying bills. I'm buying groceries. I'm basically running this household. This is not your household, I said. Brian chuckled softly, and that little sound did something to me. It was contempt disguised as amusement. Rachel turned to him for support, like a performer turning to the audience. Tell him, she said. Brian shrugged. It's simple math. Expenses go up. Someone has to contribute. I stared at them, my daughter and her husband, not even separated enough to stop coordinating, sitting in my living room like they were landlords. Rachel picked up a sheet of paper from the coffee table and waved it. Dad, you need to start paying rent, she said. My mouth opened, but no sound came out at first. It was like my body couldn't process the shape of the sentence. Rent, I said finally. Yes, Rachel said, voice hard now. If you want to stay here, you pay. Otherwise, she stood up so fast her chair leg scraped. Otherwise, you can get out. And then she screamed it. Not said it. Screamed. Pay rent or get out. The words slammed into the walls. Into the framed photo of Ellen on the bookshelf. Into the hallway where my life used to be quiet. And because life has a sense of timing, my neighbor, Mrs. Cardenas, was on my porch at that exact moment, holding a misdelivered package. She froze in the doorway, eyes wide. Rachel turned and saw her. And instead of embarrassment, Rachel's face sharpened like she'd found a witness. Good, she snapped, loud enough for Mrs. Cardenas to hear. Maybe someone could tell him he can't keep living for free. Living for free. In the house I bought. In the house I paid off. In the house where my wife died. Mrs. Cardenas's mouth opened slightly, then closed. She looked at me, helpless. Then she set the package down gently like it might explode and backed away. I didn't look at Rachel. I didn't look at Brian. I looked at my hands, still holding the pharmacy bag, the receipt sticking out like a white flag. And I realized something very calm. Rachel wanted to fight. She wanted me to blow up, to look unstable, to prove her narrative. So I did the opposite. I set the pharmacy bag on the kitchen counter. I folded the receipt carefully. I placed it in the trash like it was a deliberate act. Then I walked to the hallway closet. I took out my folders. I came back into the living room holding the mortgage, tax, and insurance files like a priest holding scripture. Rachel stared at them, confused. What are you doing? She demanded. I'm not paying rent, I said, voice flat. Brian leaned forward. Then you'll have to leave. I looked at him like he was a stain. This isn't your conversation, I said. Brian's smile tightened. Rachel's voice rose again. Dad. I held up a hand. No, I said. You want grown-up stuff? Fine. Grown-up stuff is paper. Rachel rolled her eyes, and I could see the contempt she'd been saving up. You're being dramatic, she said. No, I said. I'm being exact. I opened the mortgage folder and pulled out the payoff letter. I held it up. September 14th, 2019, I said. Paid in full. This house is mine. Rachel scoffed. So, I said, you don't get to charge me to exist in my own home. Brian stood up then, suddenly taller, suddenly tried to be intimidating. You can't just kick Rachel out, he said. She lives here. She has rights. Rachel's eyes flicked to him like she wanted him to shut up, but it was too late. Rights. That word mattered. Because rights are not feelings. Rights are law, and law is something I could use. I nodded slowly. Good, I said. Then we'll do this properly. Rachel's brow furrowed. What does that mean? It means, I said, I'm going to talk to a lawyer. Rachel laughed, loud, mocking. A lawyer, she said. Dad, you can't afford. I smiled, small and bitter. You have no idea what I can afford, I said. And that night, while Rachel slammed doors upstairs and Brian's SUV rolled out of my driveway like a getaway car, I sat at my kitchen table and wrote a list in black ink. Not feelings. Facts. Dates. Times. Amounts. Because if Rachel wanted grown-up stuff, I was going to give her the kind that holds up in court. The next morning, I drove to the bank at 8:03 a.m. because the doors opened at 8 and I didn't want to be late like a man begging. I wore my good jacket. The one Ellen used to say made me look respectable, as if respectability were armor. At the bank, a young woman with a bright smile asked how she could help. Her name tag said Maya. I need to regain access to my accounts, I said. She nodded. Of course. Do you have your online login? I do, I said, and my throat tightened, but someone changed it. Maya's smile softened. She looked at me the way nurses do when they're trying not to show pity. Okay, she said. Let's verify your identity. We went through it. Driver's license. Social security number. Security questions. Then Maya frowned at her screen. Huh, she said. What? I asked. There's a secondary email and phone number on your account, she said slowly. Is that yours? I already knew the answer, but hearing it out loud felt like a slap. No, I said. That's my daughter's. Maya's eyes flicked up, cautious. Did you authorize it? I authorized her to help with bills, I said. Not to take over. Maya nodded. The way people nod when they can't say what they're thinking. This happens a lot. She called her manager, an older man with silver hair and the careful posture of someone who'd learned to sit in authority. His name was Mr. Hampton. He listened quietly as I explained. He didn't interrupt. That alone made me like him. When I finished, he said, we can remove the secondary contacts and reset everything. But I need to ask you plainly. Do you believe there has been unauthorized activity? I swallowed. Yes, I said. Mr. Hampton nodded once. Then we should review recent transfers. He printed statements. Thick, warm paper with my life on it in black ink. We went line by line, and there it was, like right under paint. Zelle transfers, ACH transfers, card charges. May 18th, $1,250. Home improvement. June 2nd, $3,800. Legal. June 29th, $2,175. Moving. July 9th, $6,500. Retainer. July 21st, $14,900. Settlement. August 3rd, $9,750. Urgent. The labels were almost funny. Like Rachel thought naming theft made it legitimate. Total from May to August, $38,375. That was just one account. Mr. Hampton flipped another page. This is your home equity line of credit, he said. My heart thumped once hard. I don't have a home equity line of credit, I said. Mr. Hampton's expression didn't change. According to this, you do. He slid the paper toward me. HELOC opening date, June 17th, 2025. Credit limit, $120,000. Initial draw, $55,000. My hands went cold. I didn't open this, I whispered. Mr. Hampton's voice stayed steady. Then someone did it in your name. I stared at the date, June 17th. I remembered June 17th. Rachel had taken me to lunch that day, surprisingly cheerful. She'd insisted on paying. See, she'd said, smiling too wide. I'm not a burden. She bought me a sandwich with my own stolen money while she opened a credit line against my house. The irony would have been impressive if it weren't my life. Mr. Hampton pointed to a signature line on the HELOC paperwork. It looked like my name, but it wasn't. It was my name written by someone who hated me. I felt something rise in my chest then. Not sadness, not confusion. Clarity. Print everything, I said. Mr. Hampton nodded. We will, and we can initiate a fraud investigation. But I'll be honest, these things can take time. I don't need time, I said. I need control. By the time I left the bank, I had a folder thick enough to bruise someone if I swung it. I also had new password, new security, and a note on my account requiring in-person verification for major changes. It was a start. Then I went somewhere else. A law office in a modest brick building with a faded sign. Klein and Associates. Real estate/estates/civil matters. I chose it because it looked like the kind of place that still believed in paper. The receptionist was older, with glasses on a chain. She looked up. Can I help you? She asked. Yes, I said. I need a lawyer. She glanced at my folder. Her eyes softened just a fraction. Take a seat, Hahn, she said. Mr. Klein will be with you. While I waited, I noticed small details, the kind you see when you try not to panic. A plant with dusty leaves. A coffee machine that looked older than my daughter. A stack of legal pads. A framed photo of a dog on someone's desk. Normal life. I sat there holding my stolen months in my lap and tried to breathe like a normal man. When Mr. Klein came out, he wasn't young. Thank God. He looked about 60, with a tired face and kind eyes that had seen enough human mess to stop judging it. He shook my hand firmly. Mr. Harlan, he asked. Yes, I said. I'm George Klein, he said. Come on back. In his office. He listened as I laid out the story. He didn't interrupt. He didn't offer sympathy too early. He asked questions, precise ones. When did she move in? What access did she have? Did you ever sign anything for her? Any history of cognitive issues? Dementia? Diagnosis? Has she threatened you? Has she made claims about you being incompetent? That last one made my stomach tighten. She said I don't manage well, I said, and she screamed at me in front of my neighbor. Mr. Klein nodded slowly. That's important. Why? I asked. Because the narrative they'll use, he said, tapping his pen, is that you're confused, that she's helping, that you're vulnerable. I swallowed. Am I vulnerable? Mr. Klein's eyes held mine. You're human, he said, but vulnerability doesn't mean helplessness. He flipped open a legal pad. We have 2 tracks, he said. 1. Stop further financial harm. 2. Address her occupancy and your property rights. She's my daughter, I said, and the words tasted bitter now. I know, Mr. Klein said. Family doesn't change the law. Sometimes it just makes people bolder. He looked at the HELOC papers again. This is serious, he said. Forgery. Fraud. Potentially criminal. The word criminal made me flinch, because some part of me still wanted Rachel to just become a daughter again. Mr. Klein saw my face. I'm not telling you what to feel, he said. I'm telling you what this is. He slid a paper toward me. First, he said, we send a certified letter, revoking any authorization, demanding return of funds, demanding she vacate if she refuses to abide by house rules. Second, we file to freeze the HELOC draw if possible and dispute it. Third, he paused. Third, he said carefully, you should consider selling the house. I stared at him. Sell? I repeated. Mr. Klein nodded. It's your asset. It's also your leverage. If you sell, she loses the foundation she's standing on. The idea hit me like cold water. This house was my life. Ellen's laugh in the kitchen. The mark on the doorframe where Rachel's height used to be measured with pencil. The tree I planted the year I got promoted. But then I thought of Rachel screaming, pay rent or get out. In my house, on Ellen's floor, and something in me snapped, not into rage, but into decision. A week, I said quietly. Mr. Klein blinked. Excuse me. A week, I said. She screamed at me. Fine. In a week, I'll list the house. Mr. Klein studied me for a moment, then nodded. Okay, he said. Then we do it clean. Documented. Proper. No room for her to claim coercion. He leaned back. You need a medical capacity letter, he said. A simple evaluation. And we need a notary for key documents. You're going to be boringly airtight. Boringly airtight. For the first time in months, I felt something like hope. Not soft hope, hard hope. The kind made of paper and signatures. That week became a checklist. Monday, doctor. Tuesday, notary. Wednesday, realtor. Thursday, photos and staging. Friday, listing goes live. I moved through those days with a strange calm, like a man walking toward surgery. Scared, but certain the rot had to come out. The doctor visit was humiliating in a quiet way. Not because the doctor was rude. He wasn't. Dr. Singh was polite, brisk, professional. He asked me what day it was, who the president was, to spell a word backwards. He asked if I knew why I was there. Because my daughter wants to claim I'm confused, I said. Dr. Singh paused, then nodded slowly like he'd heard versions of that sentence before. He asked about my medications, my sleep, my mood. He asked if I'd had any falls. He asked if I felt safe at home. That last question stuck in my throat. Safe, I repeated. Dr. Singh's eyes held mine. Yes, he said gently. Safe. I thought of Rachel's voice, the way it sliced, The way it filled my house, like smoke. I'm not in danger, I said carefully, but I'm not in control. Dr. Singh wrote something down. When he finished, he printed a letter on official letterhead stating that I was oriented, competent, and capable of making my own decisions as of August 12, 2025 at 10:40 a.m. Time-stamped sanity. What a world. The notary was a woman named Carol who smelled like peppermint and wore bright red lipstick. She came to the law office, checked my ID, watched me sign, and stamped papers with the solemnity of a priest. Revocation of authorization. Notice to vacate if she refused new terms. Affidavit about the unauthorized HELOC. Each stamp felt like a nail in a door Rachel thought she'd already kicked open. The realtor, Jenna, arrived Wednesday at 3:15 p.m. She was in her early 40s, sharp, friendly, and most important, unimpressed by theatrics. She walked through my house with a practiced eye. Great bones, she said. Kitchen's solid. Hardwood's in good shape. You've maintained it. I wanted to say, I've maintained it because it was mine, but I just nodded. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading. Who else lives here, she asked. My daughter, I said. Jenna's expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. Okay, she said. Does she have a lease? No, I said, but she thinks she does. Jenna nodded slowly. We'll coordinate with your attorney, she said. We need the sale clean. I liked her immediately. Rachel, of course, did not. When Rachel saw Jenna's business card on the counter, she picked it up like it was a dead insect. What is this? She demanded. A realtor, I said. Rachel's laugh came fast and ugly. You're selling the house? She said, voice dripping disbelief. Dad, you can't be serious. I'm serious, I said. Her face twisted. You're doing this to punish me, she snapped. Because I asked you to contribute. I stared at her. I'm doing this, I said, because you stole from me. Rachel's eyes widened for a fraction of a second. Surprise, then anger. I did not steal, she said, voice rising. I managed. You opened a line of credit against my house, I said. In my name. Rachel's mouth opened, then closed. Her cheeks flushed. That's a misunderstanding, she said quickly. A misunderstanding with a $55,000 draw, I said. She stepped closer, eyes blazing. Dad, she hissed. You don't know what you're doing. You're being manipulated. By that lawyer. By that realtor. They want your money. I almost laughed. My own daughter, warning me about predators, while her hand was still in my pocket. Get out of my kitchen, I said quietly. Rachel froze. Her eyes flicked around the room as if looking for an audience. You can't talk to me like that, she said. I can, I said. I own the house, and I'm done. Her face went cold then, and I saw the real Rachel. The one who didn't need my love anymore, only my assets. Fine, she said softly. If you want to play hardball, we'll play hardball. She walked upstairs. That night at 2:11 a.m., I got a notification from my bank. Attempted transfer blocked. Attempted. Rachel had tried again, and the bank had said no. I sat in the dark kitchen, lit only by the glow of my phone, and realized something that made me feel older than 68. Rachel wasn't going to stop because I asked. Rachel was going to stop because she couldn't. Friday morning. The listing went live at 9:00 a.m. Jenna had sent me the draft listing agreement the day before. It was clean, professional, full of clauses that made my eyes cross. But Mr. Klein had reviewed it, and I'd signed it in front of Carol the notary, like a man signing a peace treaty. List price, $689,000. Expected closing, 30 to 45 days. Earnest money, 1 to 2%. Commission, standard. Disclosures, complete. The photos made my house look like a catalog. Bright, airy, inviting. Jenna had insisted on fresh towels in the bathroom and a bowl of green apples on the counter. It's psychological, she'd said. People like the idea of freshness. Freshness. Rachel walked into the kitchen, saw the apples, and sneered. Staging, she said. How cute. I didn't respond. I was learning the power of silence again. Not the lonely silence, but the deliberate kind. Rachel tried a new tactic that afternoon. She sat across from me at the kitchen table with her laptop open and her voice sweet. Dad, she said, I've been thinking we should do this differently. I didn't look up for my coffee. How differently? I asked. We can refinance, she said quickly. Pull equity. Keep the house. Use the cash to stabilize. I can take over the payments. It'll be fine. I laughed once short. There are no payments, I said, because it's paid off, except for the payments you created. Rachel's smile tightened. Dad, she said, voice sharp again. You're being irrational. I looked at her, then really looked. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her nails were perfect. Her eyes were tired, but not with sadness, with resentment. Resentment that I wasn't cooperating with the script she'd written. I'm being rational, I said. I'm being documented. Rachel's eyes flashed. Fine, she snapped. Then I'll document too. She stood up, marched to the hallway, and began filming on her phone. This is my father, she said to the camera, voice loud. He's having an episode. He's trying to sell the house and throw me out. I'm recording for my safety. My hands tightened around my mug. I wanted to shout. I wanted to throw the mug. I wanted to say something that would make her flinch. But I saw it clear as daylight. She wanted me to react. So I did something else. I stood up slowly. I walked to the drawer. I pulled out a single sheet of paper. Dr. Singh's letter. I held it up to her camera. This is my doctor, I said calmly. Dated August 12, 2025. I am competent. I am making my own decisions. Rachel's filming stuttered. Her eyes narrowed. That's, she started. And this, I said, pulling another paper from a folder, is my lawyer's certified letter. He'll be receiving it today. Rachel's face went pale for a second. Certified mail. The adult version of consequences. She stopped filming. You're really doing this, she whispered. Yes, I said. Rachel's mouth tightened. Okay, she said softly. I'll make sure no one buys it. And that was her promise. Her little vow. Over the next few days, she tried. She left messes. Dirty dishes in the sink right before showings. She forgot to flush toilets. She sprayed cheap perfume in the living room like she was trying to cover rot with flowers. Jenna noticed. We can handle sabotage, she told me on the phone. But you need to be prepared for confrontation. I've lived with grief, I said. I can handle confrontation. What I didn't tell her was that grief is easier than betrayal, because grief doesn't look at you and smile. The open house was scheduled for Sunday from 1:00 to 4:00 p.m. Rachel knew. She pretended she didn't care. She sat in her room all morning, blasting music with bass that made the floor vibrate. At 12:45, she came downstairs in sweatpants and a tank top, hair messy, face bare, like a teenager trying to prove she didn't respect the event. Jenna arrived at 12:50 with signs and brochures and that calm professional energy that made me feel steadier. Ready? She asked. As I'll ever be, I said. At 1:05, the first couple walked in, young, excited, holding hands. They admired the hardwood floors, asked about the school district. They smiled at the kitchen. I stood back, pretending I was just the homeowner, not the man whose life was being auctioned. Then Rachel came down the stairs. She walked straight into the living room, looked at the couple, and said loudly, "Just so you know, this house has issues. Structural. Mold. And my dad is selling it because he's not mentally stable." The couple froze. Jenna's smile stayed in place, but her eyes turned sharp. "Rachel," Jenna said evenly, "this is an open house. Please step outside." Rachel laughed. "I live here," she said. "I can say what I want." The couple looked at me, uncertain. My heart pounded once, twice, and then something strange happened. I felt calm, not numb, not detached, just calm, like my body had finally decided the fear was done. I stepped forward. "My name is Thomas Harlan," I said, voice clear. "I am the owner of this property. I am fully competent, and this sale is voluntary." Rachel scoffed loudly, rolling her eyes like a villain in a bad movie. I reached into my folder. Yes, I carried it around now, like an extra organ, and pulled out a sheet. "This is a letter from my physician," I said, holding it up. "Dated August 12, 2025. It states I am competent and oriented." The couple's eyes flicked to the paper. Rachel's face tightened. "And this," I continued, voice steady, "is a printout of unauthorized financial activity on my accounts, including a $55,000 home equity draw opened without my consent." Rachel's mouth opened in shock. Jenna stepped in smoothly. We don't need to discuss private matters, she said to the couple, smile polite. What matters is the home is well maintained and legally listed. Rachel snapped, he's lying. I looked at her. No, I said quietly. You are. The room went silent for a moment. The kind of silence that makes you hear the hum of the refrigerator and the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. Then Rachel did what people do when their lies are cornered. She escalated. She turned to the couple and shouted, You don't want to buy this house. You'll get dragged into family court. He's vindictive. The couple backed toward the door. Jenna's voice stayed calm, but her eyes were steel. Rachel, she said, I'm going to ask you one more time to leave. Rachel crossed her arms. Make me. Jenna pulled out her phone. Okay, she said and dialed. Then I will. Rachel's eyes widened. You're calling the cops, she scoffed. For me? In my own house. In my client's house, Jenna said, voice flat. Within 10 minutes, a patrol car pulled up. 2 officers came in polite, neutral. They asked what was happening. Rachel launched into a speech about how I was confused, exploited, unstable. She talked fast, like speed could replace truth. I handed the officers Dr. Singh's letter. I handed them Mr. Klein's business card. I told them calmly that my adult daughter was interfering with a legal sale and had refused to leave during an open house. One officer, a woman with tired eyes, looked at Rachel and said, Ma'am, you need to step outside. Rachel's face twisted. This is harassment, she spat. The officer didn't flinch. Step outside. Rachel glared at me. Pure hate now, no mask. This isn't over, she hissed. I know, I said. She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the framed photo of Ellen. The couple who'd been in the living room lingered near the porch, uncertain. I walked to the doorway and looked at them. I'm sorry, I said simply. This isn't how it's supposed to look. The man hesitated. Is it safe? He asked. I almost smiled at the irony. It's safe, I said. It's just honest. They left, but not everyone did. At 2:40 p.m., another pair arrived, older, maybe in their 50s, with steady eyes and the calm posture of people who had money and patience. They walked through quietly. They asked practical questions. They didn't get rattled. When they got to the kitchen, the woman looked at me and said, We heard some noise outside. Yes, I said. She nodded once. Family? Yes, I said again. She didn't flinch. Then she said something that felt like a door opening. We've seen worse, she said. We're interested. At 5:12 p.m., Jenna called me. You got an offer, she said. My throat tightened. Already? Strong offer, she said. $670,000. Clean financing. They want a quick close. My hands trembled slightly as I set down the phone. Rachel had promised no one would buy it. And yet, people don't buy your family drama. They buy your house. And my house, my real house, the one I built with Ellen, was still worth something. So was I. The next week was paperwork and tension, like living inside a stapler. The buyer's lender wanted documents. Title company wanted disclosures. Jenna wanted signatures. Mr. Klein wanted everything in writing. My kitchen table became a command center of manila folders and sticky notes. Rachel became a storm. She tried guilt first. You're doing this because Mom died and you're lonely, she said one night, voice soft. You're making a huge decision out of grief. I stared at her. You're using Mom's death like a tool, I said quietly. Don't. Her face hardened. Then she tried anger. You're ruining my life, she screamed. I didn't respond. Then she tried fear. You know I can contest this, she said, voice low. I can say you're not competent. I can say you're being coerced. I can tie this up for months, years. Mr. Klein had prepared me for that. Let her talk, he'd said. We're building a wall she can't climb. And we were. On August 18, 2025, Mr. Klein filed a formal dispute regarding the HELOC, sending documentation to the bank's fraud department. He also sent a demand letter to Rachel via certified mail, outlining the unauthorized transfers totaling $38,375, plus the HELOC draw of $55,000, demanding restitution and cessation. Certified mail receipt, 7,019-1120-0004, 88312945. Yes, I wrote it down, because I was done being vague. Rachel received the letter on August 20th at 11:37 a.m. I know because I checked the tracking like a man watching a verdict. That evening she exploded. She stormed into the kitchen, waving the letter. You're accusing me of fraud? She hissed. Yes, I said calmly, because that's what it is. Rachel's hands shook. You're choosing strangers over your own daughter, she spat. No, I said. I'm choosing truth over your story. She slammed the letter on the table. You don't understand, she said, voice cracking. I needed it. There it was. Not apology, not remorse. Need. I needed it, she repeated, like that made it okay. What did you need $55,000 for? I asked quietly. Rachel's eyes darted away. Brian, that new SUV. The divorce lawyer. Maybe debt. Maybe greed. Probably both. You wouldn't have given it to me, she said, as if that were my failure. I stared at her for a long moment. You're right, I said. I wouldn't have. Rachel's face twisted. Then she did something I didn't expect. She cried. Not soft crying. Not the kind that cleans you. Ugly, furious crying that looked like it hurt her pride. For a split second, I saw the little girl who used to run through this house barefoot, begging Ellen for pancakes. Then the moment passed, and she wiped her face hard. Fine, she said, voice flat. If you're going to destroy me, I'll take you down with me. She walked out. The next day, Mr. Klein called me at 9:02 a.m. Tom, he said, voice steady. I want you to stay calm. I'm calm, I said. I wasn't. Rachel filed a petition, he said. Emergency guardianship, claiming you're unable to manage your affairs. For a moment, my vision went white. Then I exhaled slowly, like Dr. Singh had taught me. What now? I asked. Now, Mr. Klein said, we respond with evidence, and we win. He filed a response the same day, attaching Dr. Singh's letter, bank documentation, and a sworn affidavit for me describing Rachel's actions and the timeline. The court set a hearing for August 28, 2025 at 10:00 a.m. 10 days. Rachel thought she'd found a rope to tie my hands. Instead, she'd walked into the spotlight with her fingerprints still wet. On the morning of the hearing, I wore the same good jacket. In the courthouse hallway, Rachel sat on a bench with Brian beside her. He didn't look at me. He stared at his phone like a man avoiding shame. Rachel did look at me. Her eyes were hard, but there was something else there too. Fear, maybe, or the realization that in a courtroom, feelings don't count without proof. When we were called in, the judge, a woman with gray hair pulled back tight, looked at the paperwork, then looked at Rachel. Ms. Harlan, she said, voice firm, you are requesting emergency guardianship over your father's finances. Explain why. Rachel began her speech about confusion and vulnerability. She referenced my age, my grief, my impulsivity. Mr. Klein let her talk. Then he stood. Your Honor, he said, we have evidence of unauthorized financial activity conducted by Ms. Harlan, including a $55,000 home equity draw opened without Mr. Harlan's consent, plus repeated transfers from his accounts. Rachel's face went pale. The judge's eyes sharpened. Is that true? She asked Rachel. Rachel stammered. I was helping. Answer the question, the judge said. Rachel's mouth opened, then closed. Mr. Klein handed over the documents. The judge reviewed them quietly. The courtroom felt like it was holding its breath. Finally, the judge looked up. Ms. Harlan, she said, this petition is denied. Rachel flinched like she'd been slapped. And the judge continued, voice colder now. Given the evidence presented, I strongly advise you to consult your own counsel regarding potential civil and criminal exposure. Exposure. That word landed like a stone. Rachel's shoulders sagged. For the first time in months, she looked small, not like a victim, like a person who had finally run out of places to hide. Outside the courtroom, Rachel didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just stared at me, eyes hollow. You're really doing it, she whispered. I already did, I said. And that afternoon, my phone rang again, this time from the title company. Mr. Harlan, a cheerful voice said, we're cleared to close on September 5th, pending final signatures. September 5th, a date that sounded like a door clicking shut. The final week was strange. Rachel stopped trying to sabotage. She stopped shouting. She moved through the house like a ghost, packing boxes in silence. Sometimes I heard her crying in her room late at night, muffled. Sometimes I heard Brian's voice on speakerphone, low and urgent. Sometimes I heard nothing at all. And in that quiet, I realized something painful. This was the kind of quiet I'd been missing for 3 years. But it didn't feel like comfort. It felt like aftermath. On September 5, 2025, I sat in a conference room at the title company with Jenna and Mr. Klein beside me. There was a stack of papers so thick it looked like a small tree had died for my freedom. The escrow officer slid documents across the table with practiced efficiency. Initial here. Sign here. Date here. I signed slowly, carefully. Like each signature was a stitch closing a wound. The numbers were clean and sharp. Sale price, $670,000. Closing costs, $18,450. Prorated taxes, $2,110. Net proceeds, $649,440. The escrow officer looked up. And we have a lien, she said. My heart tightened. The HELOC, she said. But your attorney provided dispute documentation. We're holding $55,000 in escrow pending resolution. Mr. Klein nodded. That's fine, he said. We'll pursue restitution through the bank's fraud process and civil demand. Even held back, the check was real. The sale was real. The house was no longer a battlefield. When I walked out of the title company, the air felt different. Not lighter, clearer. Back home, Rachel was sitting on the front steps with a suitcase beside her. She looked up. When I approached, her face was tired, older than her 38 years. Where are you going? I asked. She swallowed. A friend's, she said. I nodded once. She hesitated, then said quietly, Dad, I didn't think you'd actually do it. No, I said. Rachel's eyes filled for a second. I was scared, she whispered. After the divorce, after the bills, I thought if I could just secure this, I'd be safe. By taking it from me, I said. Rachel flinched. I didn't mean, she began. You did, I said gently, and that gentleness surprised me. You meant it enough to sign my name. She stared at her hands. What happens now? She asked, voice small. Now, I said, you live with what you did. She nodded a tiny motion. Then she looked up at me, eyes raw. I love Mom, she whispered. No, I said. And I love you, she said, as if the words were a confession. I believed her. That was the tragedy. I believed she loved me in the way she could. Messy, selfish, fearful. But love without respect is just hunger. I didn't say that out loud. I just said goodbye, Rachel. She stood, lifted her suitcase, and walked down the driveway without looking back. 2 days later, Mr. Klein called. The bank's fraud department confirmed irregularities, he said. They're reversing certain transfers and investigating the HELOC origination. This will take time, but the paper trail is strong. How strong? I asked. Mr. Klein paused. Strong enough that you'll feel it, he said. On September 18, 2025, the first reversal hit my account. $9,750 returned. Then $6,500. Then another. It wasn't instant justice. It wasn't cinematic. It was better. It was documented. I moved into a small apartment across town, 2 bedrooms, clean, quiet, with a balcony that caught the afternoon sun. I brought only what mattered. Ellen's photo, my chair, my folders, the coffee maker I'd finally learned to clean properly. The first night there, I cooked a simple meal, soup and toast. I ate at a small table that wasn't stained with memories. And I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control. Not the control of owning a house. The control of owning myself. Rachel had wanted to charge me rent for my own air, so I took the air back. And the last thing I thought before I turned off the light was this. In the end, I didn't evict my daughter from a house. I evicted her from my life's paperwork. And that was the only deed that ever mattered.